that it is 6 p.m., I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 24th meeting of the Miami Township Board of Trustees to order. With that, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Culp.
Here.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I'd like to remind all of the staff and elected officials to talk directly into the microphone with the button up, so those that might be listening online can hear everything that we're saying. We believe we've got all the kinks worked out, but we're still working through it. So with that, I'd like to go to the reading of the casualties.
Master Sergeant Jonathan J. Dunbar, Operation Inherent Resolve, March 30th, 2018, 36 of Austin, Texas. Assigned to Headquarters, U.S. Army Special Operations Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Chief Richard Sales, 52, Reynolds Volunteer Fire Department, Asheville, North Carolina. End of watch, April 8th, 2018. Police Officer Kevin Crossley, 32, Whitesboro Police Department, New York. End of watch, April 11th, 2018. Police Officer Sean Gannon, 34, Yarmouth Police Department, Massachusetts. End of watch, March 29th, 2018. Detective Sergeant Brian Cusino, 44, Newcastle Police Department, Pennsylvania. End of watch, April 19th, 2018. Sergeant Noel Ramirez, 29, Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office, Florida. End of watch, April 19th, 2018. Deputy Sheriff Taylor Lindsay, 26, Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office, Florida. End of watch, April 19th, 2018. Deputy Sheriff Casey Shoemate, 26, Miller County Sheriff's Office, Missouri. End of watch, April 20th, 2018. Police Officer Tamby Yegan, 41, Patterson Police Department, New York. End of watch, April 22nd, 2018. K-9 Bain, 3, Phoenix Police Department, Arizona. End of watch, April 22nd, 2018. And Chief Douglas Knight, Vandalia Police Department, Vandalia, Ohio, passed away unexpectedly. His end of watch was April 13th, 2018. Chief Douglas Knight was a mentor and role model for not only police officers locally, but across the nation. Chief Knight was the Chief of Police for Vandalia Police Department for over 30 years. He serves as a CALEA Commissioner since 2015, and he was a current current Commission Secretary, and he'll be greatly missed. Thank you.
If we could please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. It's always difficult to hear those that have left us, and we clearly want to thank those who serve in the line of duty. But I was very pleased to hear that our own officer, Tyler Simpson, was not on that list, and he very well could be, could have been. It was a very close near miss, and Chief, could you give us a quick update on Officer Simpson?
Officer Simpson has non-life-threatening injuries from being struck by that vehicle, which was operated by a person under the influence. The State Highway Patrol has been instrumental in the investigation of that and have supported us greatly. Officer Simpson is at home recovering. He has his first doctor's appointment tomorrow. We expect this to be somewhat of a lengthy recovery, though.
If everyone could keep Officer Simpson in their thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery, we hope to have him back very soon. With that, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
Mr. President, we'll go to the department reports. The one thing I do want to add, I do want to thank the Miami Valley Fire District for the outstanding care they did for Officer Simpson that night. I will now turn it over to Captain Russ Johnson for the Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Board. Just two items for your attention. A new liquor permit for Roosters, Miami Township. We completed a check on the individuals involved with this application, found no reason to contest this permit. And an application for change of Ohio Cinema Investments on Penny Lane. We've completed a check on the individuals involved with this application and found no reason to contest this permit. So therefore, respectfully requesting the Board of Trustees pass a motion of approval for both of those businesses. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else for Captain Johnson? No, sir. If not, Mr. Mayberry, Public Works.
Good evening. I do not have any formal items for the board this evening, but are there any questions for Public Works?
If not,
Thank you.
Mr. Chris Snyder to Community Development.
Good evening, Board. I do have one formal item for your consideration tonight, Resolution 40-2018. This is a resolution to formalize our agreement with the developers of Austin Landing regarding the traffic signal improvement that you heard about during the Buffalo Wild Wings presentation. So this would be the signal that would be going in just south of the Kroger main entrance on Landing Way at the intersection of Landing Way and Liverpool Lane. There are some diagrams of the intersection in there. We can certainly go into those in more detail if you'd like, but otherwise, again, this agreement does lay out that the developer will be solely responsible for the installation, maintenance, and operation of the signal. The township does, however, retain the right to enter the property to make adjustments to the signal as required, because again, it is a public roadway, so we do retain some operational capabilities over that signal. But with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to go over it. Otherwise, that is all that I have outside of the public hearings that we have later in the agenda.
I have no questions. I have one comment. It appears on the draft agreement on page 2 under section 4, it refers to pay and maintenance as specified in paragraph 7. I believe that should read paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 is labeled maintenance. So
We'll certainly make sure that's adjusted in the final agreement. So
thank you.
Mr. Kyle Hinkleman, Community Development and IT.
I have one item for the board this evening. Within your packets, you will see there is Resolution 41-2018, a resolution to enter into a new lease agreement for the primary copier in the administration building. After reviewing our current usage for color and black and white copies, it was determined the amount of overage that we are currently utilizing is unsustainable. Our contract just was done in a low time, and we are unfortunately printing much more than we originally 3 years ago anticipated. In going through this process, the new contract would up the number of prints that we get, with a goal being to reduce the overages, as well as make the overage occur once a year, where currently it happens on a quarterly basis. And so that once a year, if we were to go over, it kind of allows us a little more flexibility. In the spring, we are much lower in our printing. In the fall, we are much higher. That's the way that has been for many years. So this would give us an ability to kind of flex that and hopefully not go over at all. It also, the other item that is within there, it also locks the rate in for the 4 years of the proposed term. Currently, our contract allows the provider to have a 10% increase at their discretion annually. I can tell you their discretion has occurred all 3 years of our contract, which has had a 10% increase each year. So this would lock us in at one rate, which we could budget for, and would hopefully allow us to, instead of having a fluctuating rate every 3 months, it would allow us to have a set number that we could budget for, which we believe will also save money. And then on top of that, the Woodhall, the proposed provider, has said they would also provide at no cost to the township an upgraded model of RICO, as well as software for redaction purposes. That would be, again, both of those would be free as part of the new agreement. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to address them, but the resolution before you would request that the acting township administrator enter into a 4-year agreement with Woodhull for that service.
Questions? So just a point of clarification, we are entering into an agreement to get a new copier, which will be more efficient
Right.
for the staff, and we're locking in a price for 4 years in an attempt to reduce cost of copies.
Over the entire contract, correct. I believe we're going to pay, in the first year, we will be about the same that we're paying month to month now, but in year 2, where we would have seen that 10% increase, in year 3, where we would have seen that 10% increase, we no longer have that. So I believe there will be a substantial amount of savings at the life of the contract, potentially even more, but again, that's the goal.
So you had talked about the overage charges going from month to month to more quarterly. Is that analogous to, you know, a cell phone bill where you go over every month, but now you get to roll those minutes over?
Right. So as of now, the way that our contract works is we get 3 months worth, so we're getting billed quarterly. So if we go over our monthly allotment for those 3 months, we pay a fee basically on that. Now we will have an annual allotment, which will give us more time where some months we're lower. That'll give us more of a pool, if you will, of minutes, if you're in your phone analogy, of pages in this case, to allow us at the end of the year, hopefully, not to go over in color and not to go over in black and white.
It would also give you time to adjust operations. If you find out you're way
Right.
over in the first half of the year, you could make.
Which generally, unfortunately, it's the other way around. We would, at the beginning of the year, usually we're way below, and then we get into August, September, October, November. Those months are usually our largest print months.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Clay McCord, Finance.
Good evening, Board. I don't have anything formal tonight, but happy to answer any questions.
No.
Mr. President, turn it back over to you.
Excellent. So the next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Seeing no one coming forward, I will close the public comment section and move to consider a vote of resolutions and motions.
I make a motion, we approve the permit for Roosters Miami Township, Inc.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Culp,
I will make a motion, we approve the liquor permit for Ohio Cinema Investments LLC.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Culp,
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 0402018, resolution to authorize the execution and delivery of a traffic signal agreement for Austin Landing. Whereas a need for a traffic signal exists to efficiently control the ingress and egress of traffic at the intersection of Landing Way and Liverpool. Therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Miami Township, Montgomery County, Ohio, that section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4, including those sections.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Culp,
I make a motion, we approve resolution number 041-2018, a resolution to authorize the acting township administrator to execute a lease and maintenance agreement with Woodhull for the lease and maintenance of a copier. Therefore, be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees authorizes the acting township administrator to execute the necessary agreement to secure a 48-month lease and maintenance agreement with Woodhull LLC.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Culp,
With that, we will move into the public hearing section of the agenda. I will make a motion to open public hearing for zoning case number 130-83.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Zoning case number 130-83 is now open. The following will be in the order in which the hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. When you come forward, please give your name and address for the record. The board will close the public hearing prior to taking any final action. The board will now hear the report of the staff. Mr. Hinkleman, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission and the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and would you please review your report at this time?
I do. The case before you this evening is ZC 1308-83, major modification to Mad River Station Olive Garden. The request before you was properly advertised, and I do have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission. I will note as well that you will see that comments were received from the Ohio Department of Transportation on Wednesday, last Wednesday, which was the day after the Zoning Commission meeting. And I will note that the Ohio Department of Transportation stated, for case number 130-83, I recommend the edge of the new sign be placed a minimum of 1 foot off the right-of-way line along State Route 741 to allow room for maintenance rather than the 1 inch currently proposed. They should also have the right-of-way line, property line surveyed to avoid future encroachments. The location survey provided only showed 1 iron pin along the line. I state that because, again, the Zoning Commission, as we will see, did make a formal recommendation of allowing that sign closer to the road right-of-way. So we are recommending this evening, and after discussion with the applicant, we are recommending that the Board of Trustees approve that sign to be 1 foot from the road right-of-way, which you will see within your packets. There is an updated map that shows that. That was provided by the applicant, as well as I will show you as we walk through this. So the Olive Garden location is just to the west of Mad River Station. Mad River Station is the development that's on the corner of Mad River and 725. Again, the applicant is requesting to replace their existing monument signage with an updated monument design that is 6 foot 8 inches tall, and again, now they're asking for it to be 1 foot from the road right-of-way. Again, you will see within your packets a site plan that now reflects those standards based on the ODOT comments. And the sign itself is updating their current signage from the logo that they used to use to their current logo with olive branches and their cursive lettering. You'll also notice that the sign now meets our base stone and brick base requirements, and it is essentially taller than our 6 foot requirement, but it is only for the portion that has those olive branches. Again, the applicant is now meeting the requirements that were requested of it by ODOT. They will have to provide a landscape plan in the future as they ask for a final development, or excuse me, for a zoning certificate through the township. They will have to provide a landscape plan that meets the requirements of the landscape code. So with that said, the Zoning Commission did recommend approval in a 4-0 vote. They stated the Zoning Commission find the proposed major modification to the final development plan complies with the standards of Article 31, Section 3104, and recommend approval of zoning case 130-83, a major modification to the final development plan for the Mad River Station Plan Development Olive Garden and for land zoned PD5 Plan Mixed Use District with the following stipulations. 1, the sign is permitted to be set back 0 inches from the edge of the road right-of-way. In the future, if the right-of-way line is determined by the Ohio Department of Transportation or Montgomery County Engineer's Office to be further from the roadway, the applicant must move the sign outside of the right-of-way. 2, the base of the sign must meet Article 41, Section 4106, particularly the gap between the base and the sign face and the base width. 3, landscaping at the base of the sign must be equal to the overall sign face square footage. This can include flowers, bushes, or other similar plantings. And finally, 4, the sign is approved as shown in the provided drawings for design and height. Changes to the sign in the future will require additional review by the Zoning Commission. Again, with that, they voted in a 4-0 vote. This evening, we are recommending that you modify option 1 or comment 1 to state that it would be set back 1 foot from the road right-of-way. With that, if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to address them. There's also a representative of the applicant here who can speak to any questions you may have of him.
I have a question. So when we read the resolution, since we are modifying what the zoning commission approved the 1 inch, and we're requiring it to be 1 foot,
Correct.
do we still approve and uphold the zoning commission's recommendation even though it's been changed?
You are approving it, you are
Modifying.
modifying. So you would approve their recommendation and
Modify it
with
from 1 inch to 1
modifications
foot.
listed in Exhibit A, which I had provided to Mr. Morris.
Just want to be clear.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The board will now hear from all proponents. Please state your name and address for the record.
Landon White, 6001 Nimps Parkway, South Bend, Indiana. Here representing the Olive Garden. Good evening, members of the board. I'll keep my comments brief, as Mr. Hinkleman has hit the key issues and addressed all the points that I would also like to address. We just ask that you consider allowing Olive Garden to maintain the existing non-conforming location and updating it and making the improvement to the existing monument sign. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have for it. So thank you for your consideration.
Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you for coming.
Are there any other proponents? The board will now hear from all opponents. Seeing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing for zoning case number 130-83.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 042-2018, a resolution to adopt a major modification to a final development plan for Mad River Station, Olive Garden, under zoning case 130-83 for lands zoned PD-5 Planned Mixed-Use District. Therefore, it be resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the major modification to the final development plan under zoning case 130-83 and modifies as noted in Exhibit A, the zoning commission recommendation. Zoning Exhibit A reads, the sign is permitted to be a setback of 1 foot from the edge of the right-of-way, modifying the zoning commission recommendation number 1.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I will make a motion to open public hearing for zoning case number 283-96.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Zoning case number 283-96 is now open. The following will be the order in which this hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. If you approach, please give your name and address for the record. The board will close the public hearing prior to taking any final action. The board will now hear the report of staff. Mr. Hinkleman, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission and the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and would you please review your report at this time?
Thank you very much. The case before you this evening is ZC 283-96, a major modification to the final development plan for the Cranes Run Cranes Run subdivision planned development. This case was properly advertised, and I do have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission that I will read into the record at the end of my report. The Cranes Run subdivision is located to the west of 75. It is just to the south of Austin or Miamisburg Springboro. It is a 400-plus home subdivision in the western portion of the township. It is zoned PD1, Planned Residential District, and the request this evening deals with some shared space that this homeowners association maintains. The location is their pool, where they also have a basketball court and playgrounds. The applicant tonight is requesting that they be allowed to construct additional gazebos in this location. Again, since it is a planned development, all of these locations would have to be approved. So the applicant has provided a site plan as well as elevations for proposed gazebos that they would place. They are asking for 3. They are asking to construct 1 this year in 2018 with the ability to put 2 more in the future if their HOA determines it's something they're looking to do budgetarily for the next additional years. With that said, the applicant at the Zoning Commission did state that the design, which is shown here, may not be exactly the same as the design that they submitted due to Costco changing their style. So what the Zoning Commission did was put a condition in that the applicant would provide the updated drawings prior to the issuance of the zoning certificate, which the Zoning Commission stated, the Zoning Commission finds the proposed major modification to the final development plan complies with the standards of Article 31, Section 3104, and recommend approval of zoning case 283-96, a major modification to the final development plan for the Cranes Run subdivision PD and for land zone PD1 planned residential district with the following stipulation. 1, prior to construction of the gazebo, the Cranes Run HOA will provide final design details to Miami Township staff for review and final approval prior to the issuance of a zoning certificate. And the Zoning Commission did recommend in a 4-0 vote for approval. With that said, if there are any questions that you have of me, I certainly can address those. The applicant is here as well and can address any questions you may have of him.
Mr. Hinkman, the location of these gazebos, this property is owned by whom?
It is private property owned by the HOA. So it is the shared space. If I were to show you this, it's the shared space that is paid for by each individual homeowner's fees into their HOA.
And does the plan describe the base on which these gazebos will be installed, or is that to come later?
So the applicant has stated the concrete does not, it's shown as actually wood planking in the drawings, but the applicant has stated that they would be hiring a contractor to pour concrete foundations. That is a separate project from the actual construction of the gazebo, but that was a question that was asked, and the applicant stated that they are pouring full slabs of concrete.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
The board will now hear from all proponents. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Greg Smith, and my address is 4330 Woodthrush Court, Miami Township, Ohio. I am the president of the Cranes Run Homeowners Association in my role this evening. Pretty simple case. We have annual meetings. One of the reoccurring themes of the annual meetings is more shade by the pool, more place to throw little kids' parties, things to that effect. Often in the summer, we do have a gazebo. It is highly oversubscribed. There's been times and weekends there's 3 or 4 parties going on at one time. Hey, it's great. Everybody gets along for the most part. So when shopping this summer, I saw Costco had a really good price on one of these. It looked pretty sturdily built. Inquired about to our landscape company if they could install it for us, if we were just buy it, and they felt they could. So I went inquiring with the township staff on what steps would take to allow such thing. A major modification was required just because of the specifics of the site plan. So rather than just ask for one, knowing we may come back in the future years for 2 or 3, we decided to go ahead and put all 3 on the drawing, but we're only planning on proceeding with the 1 at this time. The other 2, it could be next year, 3 years, 4 years. We're running kind of a tight budget, and we'd like to keep it that way. We did do a kind of an informal social media poll. It's how we got decided where it was going to be. Majority of the residents who responded said they wanted something outside the fence for the pool so it could be used more year-round, and they wanted something near the playground so parents, grandparents, or somebody could have some shade while the kids were on the playground. So that's why that location was chosen for the first one. Happy to answer any questions. We'll do concrete, like I said, and then we'll go through the permit process once we get through this process.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Seeing none, I will make a motion to close public hearing for zoning case number 283-96.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Make a motion we approve resolution number 043-2018. A resolution to adopt a major modification to a final development plan for Cranes Run subdivision PD under zoning case 283-96 for land zone PD1 Plan Residential District. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the major modification to a final development plan under zoning case 283-96 and upholds zoning commission recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I will now make a motion to open public hearing for zoning case number 408-12. Need a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 408-12 is now open. The following shall be the order which the hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record as you approach. The board will close the public hearing prior to taking any final action. The board will now hear the report of staff. Mr. Hinkleman, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission and the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and would you please review your report at this time?
I do, thank you very much. The case before you is ZC 408-12, a major modification to the preliminary development plan for Southland 75. The case was properly advertised, and within your packets you will see a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission, which I will read into the record at the end of my report. Southland 75 is the development that is just north of Lyons, just to the west of Springboro Pike. The location is actually a large shopping center with one out parcel, Hardee's, that is, again, just to the west and to the east of 75. The original preliminary plan modification was made in 2012. At that time, there was one owner of the development. As of today, there are actually 3 owners of the development. And as the evolution of this development has happened, the current applicant is asking for the removal of what is shown as a roundabout to allow them to update their access and their parking lot without having to put in a roundabout, which they don't believe is feasible today. So again, just so you can understand, there are 3 owners of this site now, so it is broken up, and the large yellow-orange portion is the piece of the land we are talking about this evening. So the applicant is requesting to add a couple of things. They are asking to add landscaping islands. They are asking to add trees to their site. And then they are also asking to modify the facades on some of the remaining properties that have yet to have facade renovations. So the landscaping that they are proposing is within their primary parking lot. If you've been out to Southland 75, you would be aware that there are not many tree islands. There's also an easy way to drive your car left, right, and diagonal through their parking lot. So their goal through this is to kind of consolidate traffic to major points, to make it a little safer for the cross traffic, and as well as to beautify their site. So I colored in a little bit to make it abundantly clear the amount of landscaping they're adding. If you look on this, the red represents trees that exist today, and the blue represent trees that are being added by the applicant. So as you can see, they are adding a substantial number of trees to the site to, again, bring this site into more conformance with our current landscaping codes. The other piece that they are doing beyond the landscaping improvements are facade improvements. They are, again, the portion of the site that they control deal with the Dollar Tree going south around The old site that was here had an outdoor center, which has always kind of been the gap between the two buildings. So the applicant is proposing a false wall that is between the two buildings to continue the elevation through, so people aren't looking back in the back of the lot where the trucks park, and it brings a cleaner look to the front of their facade. So that would be consistent with the remainder of the site, which would have ephes and brick pilasters. They are also asking to modify the elevation for the vacant, what used to be Office Depot site. They are asking to have the elevations mimic what actually occurred almost 2 years ago now for the Hobby Lobby location, where they improved the site to remove what used to be the Rhodes angled silver into what is similar to this design. So they're asking to have, again, a similar design for this facade, primarily because they have a tenant to fill it, and they are trying to improve this location for their proposed tenant. The final piece that the applicant is requesting is modifications to their development standards. The development standards, again, were originally put in 2012 when this was all rezoned into the planned mixed-use district. Those standards would be modified to include primarily the indoor recreational use. That standard is a permitted use, or would be a permitted use in this district, which would allow indoor recreational facilities like bounce houses, trampoline places, air places, those kind of uses, as the applicant, as I said, has a user for the vacant space that is there. It also clarifies some of the standards for signage, landscaping, site improvements that are very standard for all other lots in the township these days, but it just updates the plan development standards to reflect those. So with that, the Zoning Commission recommended approval in a 4-0 vote, and they stated the Zoning Commission finds that the proposed major modification to the preliminary development plan complies with the standards of Article 31, Section 3104, and recommend approval of zoning case 408-12, a major modification to the preliminary development plan for Southland 75, and associated development text, and for land zone PD5 plan mixed use with the following stipulations. 1. The development standards dated April 17th, 2018 are accepted. 2. Fencing along Springboro Pike and Lyons Road is cleaned completely, with all plant material being removed prior to the approval of a zoning certificate for facade changes. And 3. A final fencing plan with an emphasis on improving the aesthetic of the corner will be provided for final review and approval by staff. So I will note 2 of those comments dealt with fencing on the south side of the site, which is not visible here. The corner, if you've driven by, which I would imagine, unless you came from Centerville, you drove by that tonight. The corner of Lyons Road and 741, there is a detention basin on the northwest corner, which is on their property. About 6 months ago, they took out much of the underbrush that was in that fence, but unfortunately, some of that is still in the fence. So there was a large discussion about cleaning that fence out or completely removing it, and the applicant stated they believe due to liability reasons, it's unlikely they would completely remove the fence, but they would be willing to work with staff to get either a completely replaced fence that was consistent in color and would be a cleaner look, or particularly on that corner, a more improved fence, something that would allow them to have more of a feature than somewhat of an eyesore that it is today. So with that, if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to address them. Otherwise, the applicant is here and can certainly speak to any questions you have of him.
What's the liability that they're concerned about?
So my understanding, and I am certainly not a lawyer, my understanding of a pond is obviously if somebody were to fall into it, that becomes your liability. So having a fence around it, clearly if you were to climb the fence and fall in, that would be on you, as opposed to if you were in it. Understandably, if you were to look at an aerial, which I don't think there's an aerial in here, there is a cow path, which is a phrase that we use for a path that isn't really there in terms of a sidewalk, but is used greatly. Just to the west of that, which allows people to cross the street and go through this parking lot kind of to the east of Hobby Lobby to allow them to walk north. We are hopeful that with the sidewalk improvements that are going in on Lyons Road, those people won't be in their property, but I think their concern is certainly that as the number of people that go through their property are there, their concern is obviously that something bad could potentially happen with one of those people.
Does this plan fit hand in glove with our pedestrian pathway that's going in right there?
So in 2012, when the plan development was put in, township staff worked with the owner at the time to require them to donate the easement to the township to allow us to put in a path in the future. That was in 2012. We didn't know the path was going in, but the good news is that because of that donation of that easement, we can put the path in with no problems. It fits. It's at no expense to the township.
Any other questions? I would just make one comment on page 5. It seems to be a typo. It says to modify permitted use to include indoor recreational. I think it should be recreational.
It should. That is correct. I will make that correction.
From a just quick question, does indoor recreational really, can someone say that includes anything? Could this include like one of those, what are those indoor skydiving places?
Right, correct. Yeah, I mean, that the intention, and I think the applicant certainly can speak to the proposed use or user that they have, which they have stated who it is, but I'll let the applicant speak to that. I don't believe it's a skydive facility.
And very good. The board will now hear from all proponents.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Brown. I'm an attorney, and I'm representing RCG Southland, the owner of the site and the applicant. My clients have worked with Kyle closely over a year now about how to best accomplish what they're trying to do with this site. It's kind of an older development. We're looking to update the look of it as well as the functionality of it. The Office Depot is out of business. My client owns properties across the country. They're seeing a hard time filling those kind of retail spaces again, so they've got to be a little bit more imaginative about how to fill large spaces like this. The prospective tenant is called Get Air. It's an indoor trampoline park. It's going to attract a lot of young, energetic kids to the center. We think it actually would be a great addition to the center. As a matter of fact, we talked to Furniture Fair. They think it'll be a great addition as well, because when parents get bored watching their kids jump up and down, they walk around the neighborhood and wander through the Furniture Fair. So that's what we're trying to do here. And as we work with the staff, we understood that because of the way this center was designed, old school, lots of asphalt, no trees, that we needed to get partially to what the current standards are for new developments like Austin Landing and all that. So we think we came up with a good plan that's going to make the site look good. It's going to have a lot better traffic patterns. It's going to be safer. And we are going to make that corner look a little nicer. As to the question about the fence, fence has always been there. I think a lot of people are reluctant to take a fence down when a previous owner has decided for liability purposes there needs to be a fence there, because we only have about 2 years of experience with this property. We're not really sure how much activity there would be in that detention pond area if there wasn't a fence. So the proposal is to keep the fence there but make the fence nicer, and also, as Kyle's explaining, is to use landscaping and a fence to cut off kind of a makeshift path that is coming from Lyons Road on the north side and cutting through the Hobby Lobby. We think if we make that barrier there, people will be more apt to stay on the bike path across the street and use the crosswalk instead of jaywalking there across through the Hobby Lobby. So we think it's a win-win, and we're ready to go.
Thank you. Any questions? I would just like to thank the owner for making these investments and upgrades. And that, of course, is contingent on us passing this resolution, but please thank him.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents of the plan? Seeing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing for zoning case 408-12.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Mr. Culp, I think that makes it official that the Southland 75 drive-in is not coming back.
I think so. It's gone for good.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 044-2018, a resolution to adopt a major modification to a preliminary development plan for Southland 75 under zoning case 408-12 for land zoned PD5, planned mixed-use district. Therefore, it be resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the major modification to a preliminary development plan under zoning case 408-12 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Excellent. With that, we are finished with each of our public hearings, and we will move on to elected official comments. Mr. Berry.
I have nothing this evening.
Mr. Culp.
I have none.
I have an open invitation to everybody to attend Auntie Anne's Pretzels on Thursday in the morning. It is National Pretzel Day this Thursday, the 26th, and at 9:30 we'll be having a proclamation. I believe something like the first 1,000 pretzels are free, but they're also taking donations, and 100% of the sales and donations that day will be given to Dayton Children's Hospital. So, exciting day to go to the mall and get a pretzel, cinnamon pretzel for breakfast. We'll be there. I have nothing further. Mr. Newell.
Nothing tonight.
With that, we will close the official comment section. We have no executive session. We have no study session. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting after I make this announcement that our next meeting is going to be moved. It was originally on the calendar for May the 8th at 6 p.m. Due to the election being that evening, the primary, we will want to move that meeting. It will be held May 9th at 10 a.m. So Wednesday, May 9th, 10 a.m. shall be the next meeting. I will make a motion to adjourn at 6:47.